Okay, so I want to start with unconscious mindsets. This idea that I am attracted to the idea of being free. You like the idea of being free, but you're actually terrified to be free and make your own decisions because of the fear of the responsibility that comes from freedom of choice, right? So that is an unconscious mindset that we need to be able to call out and hold space for and hold grace for, so that when we are actively attempting to make decisions and we feel the fear and we feel the unsettledness, we can acknowledge it to say, okay, yeah, I get that. I understand that I'm having a physical reaction because really the responsibility of me owning my own choice actually is scary to me because I don't know what the outcome is going to be. The other thing that that feeds into is that I don't trust myself, because we would only have fear of making choices if we actually didn't trust ourselves, which is real. Okay. And I'm saying I'm going to interchange we, you, and I, because we are really one, and I know that we've all experienced all of these. Okay. You ever wonder why you're not taking action? Like, you know, the action you want to take, it makes logical sense in your mind to take it, but you're just not taking it, right? It's like translating the thoughts into action, because there's always something else for you to do. There's always something else competing for your attention, right? And ultimately, it's when we give more value to the something else, to being accountable to someone else, to external forces, than we give to being accountable to ourselves. So one of the unconscious mindsets is the value of accountability. We feel that it is more important to be accountable to external forces than to be accountable to ourselves. And then there's the thought of, I just don't want to. Can we please just call out, I just don't want to, as a unconscious mental block? When we recognize that there is in fact ownership that we all individually have of our choices, and we also understand that mathematically, logically, the way that the universe works is that there are circumstances, there are neutral occurrences that are outside of our control, that we have no business trying to control, that we should release control of, right? But we experience them. And when we experience them, we have thoughts. Our body has reactions and thoughts, right? That feed our feelings, that drive our actions or our inactions, that is not motivated or fueled or moved by the vibration of a feeling, right? And then that action produces a result. So we know that already. We already know that. So when we accept that logic, then it makes it it makes it make sense why when we say we want something but we're not doing it, right?
Mhm.
To simply be honest enough with ourselves to get a little bit deeper to say, I actually don't want to. And there's a reason I don't want to. Often the reason that we don't want to is because there is a perception that it would be harder and way more work to do the thing that you think you want to do versus what you're already doing, even though what you're already doing or not doing is creating pain or discomfort in your life, right? But the thing is, you're familiar with it. You're already there. You've done it for however long. And as uncomfortable as it is familiar. And because it's familiar, it feels safer. It feels as though at least I can manage this. At least I can keep going, until you get to the point where you realize that you actually can. Like, there's always a breaking point, if you will, where we recognize that we can't keep doing this, but we have to go back to that thought of, I just don't want to, because of the perception that it is harder, the perception that it would be more work. And then, of course, there's the fear of, what if I put in all this work and it actually doesn't give me the outcome that I'm looking for? And so we kind of talk ourselves out of it. The human experience at its most basic level is about experiencing our divine magic, our divine power, in the human form. And so that means we have to navigate the limitations and the restrictions and the rules of the human form without forgetting that our spiritual power is actually, it has dominion over that, right? Like hive over matter. Like we actually can manipulate matter to do whatever our higher consciousness requires it to do. So we know that, but that means that we have to be responsible for the choices that we make. Meaning, if I make a choice, whatever the outcome is, I need enough patience, compassion, and grace to learn through it and not judge myself into condemnation and to send myself into a living hell, right? Like I have to be able to learn through it. And that means that I have to be accountable to myself to make myself do the things that I can control without someone forcing me to do it, right? But then the fear is, I haven't done that before. This is new to me. I don't necessarily know how to own my own choices and to not make my experience the responsibility of someone else. So what if I try that, even though logically it makes sense, but I get it wrong, or I don't get the outcome that I expected? Then I would have worked harder for nothing. Now, all of these thoughts feel very real, and they are producing the outcomes of stagnation, but they're a fallacy. They feel real, but they're not creating what we want, and they don't work for us anymore. We have literally outgrown them, okay? So I want to address a new perspective for confident decision-making, right? That can help us to say, okay, we can acknowledge these unconscious mindsets, but now what would we need to do to engage differently with making decisions? Because we don't want to make decisions out of this space, right? We want to be able to acknowledge that this space exists, to have enough compassion and patience to hold space for it, right? While we are actively welcoming something new in that pushes it out, right? Like that we're becoming the facilitator of movement on purpose. That's what we become. So competent decision-making is really for women who want freedom, who want to be both autonomous and collaboratively connected. So autonomy is wholeness. It is like me as an individual, as Jamil, I'm an individual. I will be responsible for myself. I will handle what I need to do. I will move forward in a direction, whether anyone comes with me or not, right? Like that's autonomy. But that has to also be balanced with connectivity and collaborative connectivity with others, because we're also meant to be in relationship with others. The problem, though, is when we are fractional, meaning we're not fully autonomous, we're making other people responsible for our experiences, right? We're halves trying to add to another half, and we are not adding up, okay? Whereas when we're autonomous, we're practicing being whole first. We're practicing giving ourselves priority of what we need to give ourselves so that not only do we attract other whole beings, but when it's time for us to multiply, when it's time for us to collaborate, we have enough to bring to the table so that we can actually multiply or even divide. I think that we're really going to need to have an entrepreneurial and project management mindset. It's not just a job, but it's really like a frame of thinking. And so the perspective shift that is required for successful prioritizing is really going from viewing life in this linear way, like that has a start and that has a finish, to really considering it to be more cyclic and more whole.